Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into something so perfectly ordinary, you've probably never given it a second thought. But trust me on this, by the time we wrap up, you are never, ever going to experience your weekend yard work the exact same way again. We are talking about the smell of freshly cut grass. It's a scent we all instantly recognize. But what is it actually telling us? Let's dive right in and find out.
Section 1. The Scent of Summer.
So if I ask you right now, what does summer smell like? What instantly pops into your head? For a lot of us, right up there with sunscreen and barbecue smoke, it's that incredibly distinctive leafy green aroma of a freshly mowed lawn. It just brings back these vivid childhood memories, running through the sprinklers, those long, warm, lazy weekend afternoons. It's this uplifting, pleasant scent that practically defines the whole season.
Well, here's a massive twist for you. That delightful, nostalgic perfume? Yeah, it literally smells like a plant screaming in pain. I know, that sounds super dramatic, but scientifically speaking, that is exactly what's happening. The sweet smell of summer is, in reality, a chemical distress signal broadcasted by a severely traumatized organism. Let's look at the biology behind this.
Section 2. A plant's distress signal.
You see, when grass gets damaged, it releases things called green leaf volatiles, or GOVs for short. Think of these as an incredible evolutionary alarm system. When a plant is being chewed on by a caterpillar, or say, chopped to pieces by your lawnmower, it flings these GOVs into the air. It's an SOS signal warning neighboring plants to ramp up their own chemical defenses. And get this, remarkably, it also acts as a homing beacon to attract predatory insects that actually eat the bugs attacking the plant.
Let's break down how this works step by step. When a mower blade slices through a blade of grass, it causes massive mechanical trauma. Instantly, enzymes called lipooxygenases kick in and start breaking down the plant's cell membranes. This rapid reaction produces fatty acids, which are then suddenly exposed to the oxygen in the air. That exact chemical reaction, happening right there in the open air, creates the volatile compounds that hit our nostrils. It's a frantic, immediate biological reaction to being literally cut apart.
Section 3. The chemistry of cutting.
Now, the main culprit here is a highly specific molecule called cis-3-hexenal. That is the primary compound responsible for that sharp, instantly recognizable green smell of a freshly cut lawn. But here is the catch. It's highly unstable. Almost as soon as it's released, it starts breaking down into a totally different compound called trans-2-hexenal. And that rapid breakdown, that is exactly why the intense smell of a newly mowed lawn fades away so incredibly fast.
And honestly, this just shows how mind-blowing human biology really is. Get a load of this number, 0.25, as in 0.25 parts per billion. That is the threshold at which the human nose can actually detect cis-3-hexenal in the air. We are so incredibly, evolutionarily tuned to pick up on this specific chemical distress signal. We can smell it even when it's just microscopic trace amounts floating on a breeze.
But here's where it gets kind of funny. How we interpret that tiny trace of chemical, it's totally in our heads, and it's deeply tied to our generation. Studies have revealed this fascinating split. People born before 1960 actually tend to associate this smell with happy childhood memories and a sense of pride in maintaining a property. But if you were born after 1960, you are way more likely to associate the exact same smell with unhappy memories of being forced to do weekend chores. Your brain literally dictates whether you experience a plant's distress signal as a total joy or an annoying burden.
Section 4. The hidden air pollution.
To really grasp the environmental side of this, we've got to look at a pretty groundbreaking 1998 study conducted by the CSIRO and Monash University over in Australia. These scientists set up a transparent chamber right over a grass paddock in Gippsland, Victoria, and for 2 solid years, they methodically measured every single gas that was released by the grass and the clover. What they found completely changed how we look at our suburban lawns.
Normally, uncut grass just releases a very low baseline level of volatile organic compounds. But the exact moment you cut that grass, those emissions absolutely skyrocket. Scientists documented an 80 to 100-fold increase in the release of highly reactive hydrocarbons immediately after grass is cut. And it takes hours for those emissions to drop back down to normal, meaning every single time you mow, you are causing a massive, localized chemical spike.
And the timing just makes it worse. The researchers found these emissions heavily depend on intense sunlight and heat. They hit their absolute peak midday during warm weather, which, let's be honest, is exactly when most people are out there mowing their lawns. Conversely, at night, the emissions drop to practically zero.
So you're actually releasing the maximum amount of chemicals at the exact time of day when the sun is the strongest and most able to interact with them.
So what exactly is in this invisible gas cloud? Well, beyond the cis-3 hexenal we talked about, cutting pasture and lawn releases serious amounts of oxygenated hydrocarbons. We are talking methanol, ethanol, propanone, and butanone. In fact, in clover alone, butanone can make up almost half of the total emissions. When you smell that fresh-cut lawn, you're really breathing in a cocktail of chemicals that honestly sounds more like the inventory of a manufacturing plant than your peaceful suburban backyard.
Section 5. Rethinking the green lawn.
Okay, so the big takeaway here is that these green leaf volatiles, they don't just magically disappear. Nope. These highly reactive hydrocarbons rise up into the atmosphere and they combine with nitrogen oxides. You know, the exhaust from the very lawnmower you're pushing around or from passing cars? Under the intense summer sun, this chemical reaction actively exacerbates the formation of aerosols and ozone. Believe it or not, cutting grass can account for up to 10% of the total hydrocarbon release in urban areas. Your weekend lawn care routine is actively contributing to urban photochemical smog.
And crazy enough, you can actually see this process happening with your own eyes. If you've ever looked out over a heavily forested area on a really hot day, like the Dandenongs in Victoria or the Blue Mountains in New South Wales, you might have noticed this distinct blue haze hanging heavy in the air. That haze is partially visible smog, and it's created by the massive amounts of these exact gases released by the vegetation. The smell of cut grass is quite literally the smell of air pollution forming.
Just to really hammer home how deceptive our noses can be, I want to share a slightly dark but fascinating fact. There is a highly toxic, colorless chemical out there called phosgene. It was notoriously used as a chemical weapon during World War I. And what does deadly phosgene smell like to the human nose? Exactly like freshly cut grass. Our brains are hardwired to tell us this smell is safe, happy, and entirely natural, but chemically speaking, it can be anything but.
Which brings us to the final thought I want to leave you with for this explainer. The very next time you fire up that mower on a hot summer afternoon and you take a nice, deep breath of that wonderful, nostalgic scent, just ask yourself, are you smelling the joys of summer, or are you smelling the invisible smog of 1,000 screaming plants? Is that perfectly manicured, pristine green lawn really worth the chemical cloud it takes to create it? Thank you so much for joining me today, and I genuinely hope this changes the way you see and smell your own backyard.